Hey guys, coming another movie for you guys. Now, this movie reviewing, I usually say that this is a movie that I very much was interested in seeing, but I'm gonna be honest, this is another one of those movies that I went into really knowing absolutely nothing about. I only knew really a few things going into it, but my friend Adam Haskell, who was on this, who's been on this channel multiple times, actually recommended it to me, and that, of course, is none other than Captain Fantastic. Like I said, this movie, I did know the title. We talked about in the movie preview in August, back when I did videos with just the random Eric for the movie previews, which that will very much be changing. Like I said, you guys saw my video, you know what that's about. But I went in this movie really knowing absolutely nothing. I knew a brief summary of the plots, but I figured, he told me to watch it, and I might as well just watch it. And I'm very happy that he recommended this to me because Captain Fantastic is one of the most underrated movies I have seen all year. I loved Captain Fantastic. This is an incredibly very depressing but very hopeful film that I feel is very important, with one of the most interesting plots I really have heard all year, which let's get right into that plot because I really do love the plot of this movie. Basically, we focus on Viggo Mortensen. Now, he is someone who he has taken his entire family and basically isolated them from society. He has done this so that way they can learn through him. That way they're not exposed to modern technology. There's no distraction and things like that. He feels this will make them smarter, and he has this great life, with his wife and his 6 kids, and everything's just going great. However, his wife then suddenly is hospitalized for bipolar disorder, and she ends up committing suicide, and he ends up suffering this great loss with her leaving, and basically realizes that he needs to get his family out of there in order to cope with this loss, and realizes when he gets out into the real world that he and his family are not at all prepared for what the real world has to bring. And that's all I'm going to say because I do not want to spoil the rest of this movie. But let's just get into this movie, starting off with the cast. Now, like I said, this is a movie that I went into really knowing nothing. The only thing I really knew was the actors, and let's talk about Viggo Mortensen, because holy shit is he incredible in this movie. The character of Ben Cash is one of the most fascinating characters I've seen all year, really. I mean, this character in general, I found to be really, really interesting. This is someone who, like I said, wants to raise his children in an untraditional way, in a way where they're not surrounded by technology, in a way where he's going to teach them everything. He has very specific ways of making them do things. He has very different types of rituals, and just getting into his head, seeing why he's doing this is overall really, really interesting, and you understand why he's doing it. He's not just doing it to shelter his kids, he's doing it more so that way they're more, smart and, adapt to society. However, seeing him come out of the woods is when this movie really does get interesting, because you really start to see the regret that's pinned on him and how he really starts to realize that he didn't really train his kids for the real world. He only really trained them for the forest and a couple things that they know. Other than that, they don't really know. And just seeing that throughout this movie, I thought was very interesting. He gave a very, not subdued, but very honest performance. Definitely, I think he did an incredible job in this movie. You can definitely see the guilt looming over him. He very much blames himself for his wife's death, and there are definitely some hard scenes to watch with his character, but he did an incredible job. I think it's one of the most underrated performances I've seen all year. I loved Viggo Mortensen in this movie. He really was incredible and really does add to a lot of the emotional investment that I really had in the story. Now, as for the rest of the cast, I think the rest of the cast really is just as good. Viggo Mortensen definitely is the star of this movie. Like, he definitely did steal the show out of everyone. But I think his family, the kids especially, were all really, really great. I think they all worked really well together. They're all kind of going through similar circumstances where they talk much different than other people do. They act differently. They dress differently. There are so many things that they don't know about that Ben hasn't taught them, and you really start to see how this affects them. However, by far, I think the best performance of everyone was George McKay as Bodevin, who is his oldest son, and he was incredible in this movie. He starts to have this relationship with this girl, and immediately things get very awkward because of the way that he was raised and the kind of culture that he has. I thought that definitely is very interesting, the way that starts to clash. However, this one scene he has in the third act of the movie that is the scene that made me say, okay, this kid is definitely going places. I mean, he was incredible in this movie. All the kids really start to accuse Ben of what's going on, and you understand it. Like, this isn't really something where, you think they're being ungrateful or they're being, bratty or whatever. You really understand why they're blaming him for, what they did. And there's a really great twist to this character that I did not see coming at all. I thought that he was incredible in this movie. I love the direction that they went with Bedevin's character. And in general, I thought he and the entire ensemble of all the kids worked really well together. They all had really good chemistry, and you really did care about all of them. I mean, just the way that Ben raised them, I thought was very fascinating. You really wanted to see more of these characters, and I'm very interested in seeing where these actors are going to go from, because they all seem like they definitely have very bright futures, and I can't wait to see where they go after this movie. The only actress I did recognize of the kids is Annalise Bazo, who of course was in Ouija Origin of Evil. Not necessarily given the amount of stuff she was given in that movie here, but she still did do a great job as a character of Vesper. There's this one thing she goes through later in the movie, and it's pretty crazy. I couldn't believe they put her in this position, but I thought she did an incredible job. I really am loving this actress, and I can't wait to see where she's going to go, because she also was really great. And then the other performance I really do want to talk about is Frank Langella as Ben's father, Jack. Plays a very important role in this movie. He's very low on the cast list, and I don't really know why. I think he should honestly be one of the main characters, because he's one of the more driving forces of the conflict of this movie, which, like I said, is all about, should we raise our children in a traditional environment, or should we try to raise them in a more untraditional environment? And are we kind of sheltering them from what's going on? It's a very interesting conflict that these two have. You really do see his side, and I like seeing Frank Langella play a normal person for once. He always seems to play these, like, manipulative, dark, brooding figures. Like, don't get me wrong, he is amazing as Gabriel in The Americans, but Gabriel's very manipulative, and Gabriel is very dark and very just intimidating. And yes, Frank Langella has a very intimidating voice, but I like seeing him play an actual, like, a regular person. I like seeing him play that role. I thought he did a really great job in this movie, and again, the direction of this character I really wasn't expecting. I thought he definitely was really good, and I really did love what they did with him overall. I want to see more roles for Frank Langella like this. I'm sure he's had it before, but it just feels like a lot of the roles recently he's been getting, like, a lot of over the top, not over the top, but just a lot of, like, evil type roles, and I want to see him play more roles like this, because he's quite good in this movie. And the directing here by Matt Ross, I thought was really, really great directing that I definitely do want to get into, because this movie could have come across as, I think, really silly. I mean, just the plot in general sounds like one of your typical fish out of water stories, but it never really goes in that cliche direction, which very much surprised me. I expected this to be one of those typical, they're not caught up with the times, and they're behind and everything. I really expect this to be kind of like Blast from the Past. If you guys have seen that movie with Brendan Fraser, where he and his family go under an atomic bomb shelter, they come out, it's the 90s, and things are completely different. That's what I thought was going to happen here, and I like that we didn't go in that direction. They took this seriously for the most part, and they did that really, really well. Now, when the comedy's there, it's there, and there are some really funny moments this movie, definitely. Like, seeing them interact with people and their reactions. I mean, yeah, it's pretty funny, but for the most part, they take it seriously, and that's something that I really did like about Matt Ross's directing, is he knew when to be funny and when to take things seriously, and he did that really, really well here. But let's get to the screenplay, because this, in my opinion, is one of the best screenplays of the year. I really did love the screenplay of this movie. I think it was so well written, and it has so much to say, I think, about life and death and things like that, especially when it comes to the idea of grief. The way that this can change everything, the way this can divide a family, it can divide a family, it can change a family, and the way it definitely changes this family is very, very insightful, and I think they showed that very well here. I very much enjoyed the way that the writing was done. It's very sad at points to hear where they're going with his wife's death, who for a while, he kind of tries to ignore her funeral because he kind of wants to steer away from it, but you can see throughout the movie that obviously, he knows what needs to be done, and I thought it was a very interesting little subplot for his character, really what to do about his wife's funeral, which he's kind of ignoring. I thought that definitely was very interesting. I thought they did that really well. And the character of Leslie, even though she's not in this movie for that long, you really do understand why she committed suicide, why she went crazy, and how she really wasn't necessarily okay with what he was doing, but because she loved Jack so much, I mean, not Jack, Ben so much, she just kind of adhered to what he was doing. I thought that definitely was interesting to see. But like I said, the most interesting aspect of this movie, without a doubt, is the whole idea of how we should raise our children. And the movie isn't telling you how to raise your children. It's more about, if we raise them in this untraditional environment, are we sheltering our kids, or are we making them learn more? And there's this great scene where Ben and Jack have this pretty ferocious confrontation where they go back and forth, and Jack talks about how, you're not giving your kids the life that they want, while Ben's talking about how this is really benefiting them. And it was a very interesting conversation that I really thought opened up a lot of interesting ideas that this movie really had to say, because, yeah, a lot of what Ben is talking about is good. I mean, a lot of that whole playing outside, observing nature, or even just appreciating something outside is kind of dead because we're also locked into our phones, and the movie really does have a lot to say about that. But what I like the most, but what I really did like, is that it doesn't try to beat you over the head with a dead horse about it. It really doesn't, and that's something that's very rare nowadays. A lot of times you'll get the message shoved in your face, but this movie really does not do that. It's present in the movie because it needs to be, but it's not really shoved in your face the entire film. The movie is more about the family and how they acclimate to this environment, and how very quickly they kind of start to realize that this is the life that they want, and kind of realize, what life they really need to have. And that's something else the movie really understands, that the movie does understand that life in general isn't really fair. What you want in life is not necessarily what you're going to get, and the directions that you go are not going to be the directions that you necessarily want to take, but they're the directions that you have to. And that's something this movie just understood really, really well. I'm not saying other movies don't, but this movie just understood that really, really well, and I think they stuck to that whole message of, life is very precious and you need to try to savor every single moment that you can. I think they did that really, really well here, and I definitely really did enjoy that. And there's some really heartwarming moments this movie, and that's something else that I really enjoy. I thought there were some really cute moments, some very heartwarming moments, and in general just really, really great in terms of family drama. They really did an incredible job with that. The cinematography here is beautiful. When we're out in the forest, you really do feel like you're in that forest and that you're kind of secluded with them. I think they did that very well. But then when you get into the real world, you very much feel like it feels, much more vibrant and much more colorful, and you feel like there's just a lot more going on. It's not as bland, and the cinematography really is a big part of this movie, because it very much, shows the distinct difference between the forest world and the world of, the outside world. They did that really, really well here, and again, I thought the cinematography was so well executed in that manner. Music, surprisingly, is a big part of this movie. There's a lot of times where the family will sing to try to help them go through something, and it didn't come across as cheesy. I feel like in other movies it would have come across as really cheesy, but it really didn't. I think that, for the most part, the score worked really well here. There's one scene where they're kind of honoring their mother, and they start to sing. It's towards the end of the movie, and it almost brought me to tears. It was really, really touching the way they did that, and I really did love the score of this movie. Really well done overall. My only complaint with Captain Fantastic is that it did take a little while to get going, I'm not gonna lie. When we're in that forest, as interesting as it was to see, Ben's philosophy and everything, I was a little bit taken out of the movie a little bit. I will definitely say, it took a while to get going. I was into it. It's not that I wasn't into it. It's just when Leslie died, that's when I really started to get into the movie. I think the movie got a lot better after that. The pace really picked up, and I wouldn't say it was necessarily slow. It's kind of supposed to be that way, but I do think that the pace did pick up a little bit after Leslie died, and then we kind of went from there, and I think they did that really, really well. And other than that, though, I really did love this movie. I think the editing was very well done. I was into the movie the whole time. It really did fly by for me. And, even that part, like I said, that I was a little bit disinterested in, I still was very much into it, despite the fact that it was a little bit slower than, most. When it really comes down to, guys, I absolutely love Captain Fantastic. This is a movie that I really feel has been very underappreciated. I haven't really heard many people talk about it, and it's kind of disappointing because it's a very important movie that really has a lot to say about, like I said, society and cultures, and really just the different ways that people live, and it took what could have been a very, I think, very preachy religious film and made it really subdued and made it just feel real, and it did it in a way that other movies don't. And besides that very that first like 20 minutes, which is, like I said, a little bit of a rocky start, I absolutely love Captain Fantastic. This is by far one of my favorite movies of the year, and I am overall going to give Captain Fantastic a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. This is an incredible movie that I really do encourage you all to see. It's very different than what you might expect it to be, but it goes in a very uncliched route that I was very impressed with overall. It's a movie that I really do recommend you guys go in not knowing much about other than what I've told you, because it very much will surprise you. It has also by far one of the best endings of the year, one of the best casts of the year, and overall one of the most interesting concepts of the year that I think was one of the best executions, and overall just one of the most interesting films that was just something that was a very different look at what could have been a very familiar film, but took it in a very unfamiliar route, which is one of the reasons why this movie impressed me as much as it did. But overall, guys, remember, you Captain Fantastic. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Loved your thoughts, and I absolutely love this movie. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for another movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye. Also, guys, I'm not sure when it's going to go up, but pretty soon I will be doing a collab review with Tony, aka 22 Tiger Dude, on his channel. So definitely check that out. He's doing a series of Christmas reviews, so definitely look forward to that. And the movie that we'll be reviewing is I'll Be Home for Christmas. I'm not quite sure when that's going to go up, but whenever that goes up, definitely look out for that. I will try to leave a link and things like that when it comes out, but just wanted to tell you guys about that. But either way, guys, this is it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.